haunting of Aokigahara Forest, Japan. Deep in the shadows of Mount Fuji lies one of the most chilling and mysterious forests in the world. Aokigahara, also known as the Suicide Forest. This forest, with its dense, thick trees and silence that seems almost unnatural, has become a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead blur. But what is it that draws people here? And why do they never come back? Aokigahara has a long and dark history. For centuries, the forest has been a place where those facing depression and despair have wandered in search of an end. It's not just the location that makes this forest so disturbing. It's the fact that people choose to die here, in isolation. Every year, dozens of bodies are discovered deep within its depths. The forest has earned its grim nickname as a final destination for those seeking solace in death, but it has also earned a darker reputation. But it's not just the tragic deaths that have made Aokigahara infamous. Many believe the forest is cursed, haunted by the restless souls of those who have passed away, their spirits unable to find peace. There are stories that suggest Aokigahara is a place where the dead still linger, and their presence is felt by anyone who dares to enter. Some say that if you listen closely enough, you can hear the whispers of those spirits, caught in a never-ending cycle of torment. The wind seems to carry their voices, faint but clear, echoing through the trees. Those who have ventured deep into the forest speak of hearing footsteps behind them, but when they turn around, no one is there. It's as though the forest itself is alive, watching, waiting, feeding off the despair that surrounds it. It's said that once you step foot into Aokigahara, the trees have a strange way of disorienting you. The dense canopy blocks out the sun, leaving everything bathed in shadow. Some who have entered the forest report an overwhelming sense of claustrophobia. It's as though the trees close in around you, pushing you further and further from the path. There are accounts of people losing their way, unable to find the exit no matter how many times they've walked the same path. The forest seems to lead them deeper, as though it's purposely guiding them toward the most remote, unreachable parts of the land. And sometimes, when they finally turn around and retrace their steps, they find themselves on a completely different path altogether. A particularly eerie aspect of Aokigahara is its silence. The forest is unnaturally quiet, and that stillness can be overwhelming. The sound of birds is absent, and even the rustle of leaves seems muted. This unsettling silence, paired with the haunting atmosphere, makes every step feel heavier. Many report that it's easy to become lost in this silence, not just physically, but mentally. The air is thick with the tension of those who came before. But what truly makes Aokigahara so terrifying isn't just the stories. It's the countless real-life accounts of strange occurrences in the forest. Hikers and tourists who have explored Aokigahara tell of feeling watched, of seeing flickers of movement out of the corner of their eyes. But when they look, there's nothing there. Others report hearing footsteps behind them in the forest. But when they turn, there's no one to be seen. In recent years, there have been numerous reports of people hearing their names called out when no one is nearby, and some claim to have heard faint cries for help that seem to come from within the trees themselves. These are not the cries of lost hikers or tourists. They are said to be the souls of those who came before, still crying for release. One of the most chilling stories from Aokigahara comes from a young man who decided to visit the forest in search of answers. His journey into Aokigahara was meant to be an exploration of the mysterious place. He'd heard of the dark stories, but he never truly believed them. That was until he ventured deep into the forest and noticed something that made his blood run cold. As he walked along one of the remote paths, he noticed something in the distance, what appeared to be a figure, standing still, facing the trees. Curious, he approached it, but when he got closer, he saw it wasn't a person at all. It was a mannequin, hanging from a tree by a rope. Its face was twisted into an eerie expression, its eyes wide and glassy, staring out into the vast expanse of the forest. The man's heart raced as he realized that the mannequin's position seemed deliberate, almost as if it had been placed there for a reason. But when he turned around to leave, the path had shifted. He couldn't find the way back to where he started. His fear intensified as he tried to retrace his steps, but the forest seemed to change with each turn, leading him deeper into the woods. He never returned from that day, and his body was later found near one of the forest's darker, more remote sections. It was as if the forest had taken him, and the mannequin was a warning to others. But there's one thing about Aokigahara that haunts many who dare enter: the feeling of being followed. Countless people, even experienced hikers, have described the sensation that something or someone is lurking just behind them. The oppressive feeling that you are not alone, even if you can't see or hear anyone, can break even the most courageous person's resolve. It's said that some who enter the forest feel an overwhelming pull to go deeper, almost as though the forest itself is drawing them in, tempting them to never leave. They become overwhelmed by a sense of hopelessness and fear, some even being driven to the brink of madness, convinced that the spirits of the forest are pushing them toward their doom. Aokigahara, a place of silence and darkness, remains one of the most haunted locations on Earth. Whether it's the souls of the lost, the curses woven into the forest's very roots, or something far darker, this forest leaves those who enter forever changed. Its dark history continues to draw people in, despite the fear it instills. And for those who dare to explore the forest, one question lingers in the air: will you make it out, or will you become one of the forest's lost souls?